Closers, I have a gentleman here who helps CEOs and COOs get out of the weeds on their project management. And oftentimes, when the project is going haywire, this guy comes in and helps save the day, takes over the project. And these are big projects. He'll share about one of his projects, but he turns that around for them and gives them their life back. So I want to introduce you to Kris Grey from Fresno, California. Kris, welcome to the Close the Deal podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
So, Kris, tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, what you do, and then I want to find out a win that you've helped people with, a recent win that you've taken your skills. How do you help somebody? But let's a little bit of background.
Sure. So I'm a longtime project manager with over 20 years of project management experience. My first project, I like to say, was when I was 2 years old. I was assigned to try to hammer in very specific nail on this house that we were building for ourselves in Selma. And there's photographic evidence that I was, albeit very unsuccessful at my task. But that was the first project that I was assigned to. And I just grew up in construction, working with my parents' construction company, and it just evolved over the years into things where now that they're retired and out of the game, I've got my own company here now with Creatapult and
Mhm.
just looking to help the companies out that I saw growing up, seeing their struggles and
Mhm.
trying to make sure that we weren't letting them repeat the past mistakes.
I was on a job site yesterday for a lady I helped get into a franchise. She's building her franchise out and she's going through the things, all the things that are going sideways. Now, I know you're working with bigger companies, I'm assuming, to be able to step in at a larger scale. What's a recent win that you've had doing what you do? How do you help somebody?
Yeah, so we just helped a large transit agency that was 7 years behind schedule on most of its projects,
Mhm.
doing about $55 million a year in their annual capital portfolio. We got them to a point where every single one of their projects was either done or at least tracking on schedule, and they had actually been able to double their project portfolio up to about $110 million
Holy cow.
of annual work. And we did it with, an overall reduction in staff force because they had some folks that retired out and the budget wasn't approved to replace them. And so we actually shrunk the team, grew the capital portfolio, and got them back on track without overburdening, I'll say, with the folks that were left behind. It wasn't just a matter of let's pile more on less and say, figure it out.
That's amazing. So you really come in and it's a cost savings when it's done right. So you're setting up systems and processes. Is that what you're doing to help them get in line?
That is correct. So trying to come in and say, okay, we need to get the C-suite folks out of the day-to-day decision-making processes because generally they're too in the weeds. They have other things, higher level things that they need to be focused on, much as the project managers need to have a standard set of processes and procedures that they're following so that all of their projects are run in a very similar fashion. I want to get companies out of the mindset of what we call project management by heroics, where it's
Mhm.
on the individual efforts of any one particular person and get them into the simple, repeatable system so that it doesn't matter who is ultimately running that project. It's going to get run in a very similar fashion across the board from everybody in the team. And we're trying to give them those tools so that they can scale up or down as much as they want and do it with confidence.
So these are very large scale projects. Is it mostly construction that you focus on other areas as well?
Yeah, that is my kind of sweet spot is in the
Okay.
construction industry. A lot of what we do though is widely applicable to other areas. There's actually a lot of crossover with IT based projects in the way that construction and IT function on their project management. They s- they speak slightly different languages, but they're generally trying to do the same things. And so it's just a translation thing for us coming in and trying to say, okay, like you might call it Scrum and Agile. Construction is your more typical waterfall type project management, but at the end of the day, you've got projects, you're trying to deliver on time and on budget, and we're going to help you do that.
I got it. Okay, this makes sense, and I appreciate what you do because I'm in the world of franchising, and without systems and processes, that industry doesn't exist. So look, I want to shift gears. That's the big win. What's the biggest challenge you've had in life whether it's in business or some other area of life that you overcame? What you do to overcome it, and how has that formed you where you are today?
So when our first child was born, I thought at that time in my life, I thought I was going to be an accountant.
Oh,
I
wow.
was I was in the accounting world. I was working towards my CPA. I thought this is what I was going to do. And we had been planning for a while. We had been putting my wife's paychecks away in savings, saying, okay, once our daughter was here, we were going to go to a one income family. My wife was going to stay home with the kids and everything like that. It was going to be, that was how we were going to do things. She resigned her job shortly before our daughter was born. And then I was actually let go 3
Oh,
days after she was born. So we went in the span of about a week, we went from 2 incomes to no income,
with a
and
child,
with a newborn at home.
with a newborn. Oh my gosh.
And so it was and then it would take me about 9 months of searching to land that permanent job again, or what I would call a permanent job. After working kind of odd jobs, working for friends, I worked at a coffee shop for a little while, got a real estate license, sold a couple of houses, mowed lawns, did taxes on the side for people. There was a lot of different things I was doing to try to make ends meet during that period of time. But I got my first paycheck from that permanent job the day the money finally ran out of savings. And so it was just like it all kind of lined up, boom. And that's what got us through that. But getting through that challenge was a lot of kind of self-discovery, a lot of networking. Obviously, it could not have done it without the network that we had built between my wife and I, and the friends that we had that were able to help us out with these odd jobs and different things. My wife, unfortunately, had a lot of health problems post birth. And so was like really in a position where she couldn't help that much on the income side. And so it really kind of fell back on me. And it was during that time that I realized how risky it was to try to depend solely on a W-2 job anymore, because at
Wow.
any given time, it could just be taken away. Gone are the days of you get locked in with a company, you work there for 40 years and the company takes care of you. It's
It
kind of
doesn't
like,
exist anymore. Yeah.
no, that world is gone.
And a lot of
Uh,
people are finding that out right now. As we're talking, people are finding that out in real time.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like we can't go more than a few days without hearing about just massive tech layoffs right now. And there's a lot of people looking at it and saying, what's the point of all my experience? What's the point of all this work I put in, company loyalty, all of that? Truth is, anymore, it really doesn't matter. You can still be let go at any given time. And so I decided I need to have something in the works on the side at all times. And so I've kind of been a serial entrepreneur ever since in the background, eventually stumbled on this idea of the company I have now, Creatapult, which has gone through a few different iterations in its lifetime, but realized, you know what, there's really a world in which the intersection of my passion for business and trying to help others is intersecting with my experience as a project manager. And I can use these tools to help other companies be successful so that when they strike out for their own entrepreneurial journey, they feel like they have a better safety net. They have the confidence to scale and actually go for their dreams rather than saying, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. They let it fail. Whatever happens, they're not alone.
So not your back was really against the wall for those 9 months.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that is what formed you to become resilient and become creative, and you learn the value of networking through that process. Sounds
Yeah. Yeah. That 9 month period was probably the most stressful 9 months of my life. But at the same time, it was you buckle down and you get through it. You're really not thinking about when's this ever going to end? How am I going to get through this? It's what's the next right move? And
yeah,
so in that sense, my project management background really was helpful because that's what I was used to doing, right? What's the next right move that's going to deliver this project on time and on budget? It was always, what's my next move? What do
yeah.
I need to be working on? Who do I need to be talking to? What irons do I have in the fire? And how am I going to piece this all together so that it works the way that we need it to?
Man, you just described so many entrepreneurial journeys right there and people exiting. I love that. All right. And that's what I've been talking to people for my whole career. And that resilience is what makes it work. You just figure it out when your back's against the wall like that. You have no choice, really.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to pivot now. This is where it gets really interesting and fun for the show. I like to talk about 4 areas of people's lives, whether it's their relationships, it's spiritual, it's business, or it's their health. And this is what I find talking to founders like yourself. everybody or leaders, any leader, any athlete or musician, everybody who's performing at a high level has inevitably pushed aside a promise that they've made to themselves. I'm gonna do X, but they keep pushing it off because life, business, you name it, health, something gets in the way. What would you say 2 things are in 2 different areas of your life, be it relationships, spiritual health, or business, have or 2 areas we'll identify 2 areas, and we'll drill down to 1. What would those 2 things that just come straight to mind?
So I have been so focused on the entrepreneurial journey that I have arguably neglected personal relationships with my wife, my kids, and definitely need to be spending more time honing in on what it means to be a good husband and a good father. And that's something that I told myself when we started our family. I was like, I want to be a good dad, right? I want to be a good dad. I want to be a good husband. And it just seems, what am I doing right now to work towards that? And the answer would honestly be not much of anything.
Okay.
And it isn't just going to happen on its own. It's just like anything else. I got to put the work in, otherwise it's not going to happen. The other thing is I have definitely neglected my overall health along this
Mm,
journey. I was an athlete all growing up and going through college and everything. I rode, I played basketball, and so I was used to being in relatively good shape, eating well, working out a lot, and staying fit. That has all gone out the window in the last probably 10 years or so. And I'm not going to be here forever
yeah.
for much longer if I don't start to take care of those things.
So you just identified man, you just described you hear about billionaires who make it, right? And they've got all the money in the world, but the guy with the sore throat, a billionaire with a sore throat, forgets that he has 2 billion in the bank. He just wants to get rid of the sore throat. You compound that with a serious health issue, he'll give everything away to get his health back to where he was in his 20s. So
Mhm.
your journey is actually more common than not. And then of course it's so easy to for every family I think faces this. The father gets so wrapped up in the business or their job trying to make things work. And it sounds like you have both. If you are leaning towards the other or for the purpose of this show, I'm gonna ask you a question. First of all, how long have you felt this way with your wife and kids that you subconsciously know you gotta make some changes here?
It's probably been about the last 5 years or so that
Okay. So 5
it's been
years.
like starting to nag and grow in that idea of, okay, this has gone from something I can passively ignore, say, oh, I'll get to it. To, okay, no, I have now consciously put this off. And
Okay.
that's a problem.
And your health, that when did that start sliding?
That has been a challenge pretty much the last 10 years or so.
Wow.
And that started honestly with that journey of losing the job and then having to scrap and claw and get back to some kind of income and kind of supporting the family. It started a cycle of like you're saying, so wrapped up in the work and the business and trying to just make ends meet that I forgot about a lot of the other things or things that I at the time told myself, okay, that's not important because that's not putting food on the table.
Both of these are absolute priorities for you. You've got it sounds like you got a business going well. I don't wanna lean you one way or the other. I do wanna ask you a question. If you're not healthy, you can't be there for your family or you can't be there for your work. That's one consideration as you answer this and think through which one do you wanna maybe you tackle them simultaneously, but if you had to choose one, which one would that be?
Definitely the health. And I'm thinking the same thing, right? I can't be there for anyone else if I'm not there first and foremost for myself and in a healthy state.
Okay, so now we get to the tactical part because that just gave you clarity, and I think the other part, when you start feeling healthy, I belong to a men's group, and we 6 of us, 6 or 7 of us, and we started meeting part of my church, and we started meeting in October, and we started with the health piece, believe it or not, because that affects if we can control our health, we can control every other aspect of our life, and it will have a positive influence. One of the gentlemen has lost significant amount of weight. He has energy now, he has his work is going better, His marriage is going better. It affects everything. So I think that's the right choice. I really do. And then your wife will be right behind it because she's going to see you making a change. That's going to make her feel good just by the virtue of you doing that. So what would a reasonable plan of action be for you? Small steps. You don't have to become crew again. You don't have to be in the shape you were. I know how hard that is. I know how basketball brutal. That level of health, physicality is pretty high up there. But you got to ease back into this. What does that look like for you?
First and foremost, it's eating better.
Okay.
It's actually dedicating the time to the meal planning and to the prep work to make sure that it's not just grabbing whatever's convenient, right? Because what's convenient is often going to be the overly processed foods, the
100%.
things that are just terrible for you. And so I got to get out of those habits first. And I think that will have some of those extra benefits too, because if I'm eating healthy in that respect, then the rest of my family is too.
Yes.
And so we're all starting off on the right foot there. And then I think beyond that, it then goes into then starting to work in the physical activity and trying to make sure that I'm in that boat where I got to lose some weight.
Okay. All right. So, okay, wait. And the food, I'll say this, the food is everything. And you know that. That's the important part. Now you just got to put steps in place to start eating healthy. The food became critical for my wife and I. In 2019, she called me while I was up in North Carolina to let me know she had been diagnosed. I was commuting back and forth to New Orleans. She let me know she was diagnosed with an autoimmune issue. And all the doctors wanted to do was put her on a medication that could potentially cause retinopathy. And she's like, it's not an option. I don't want to lose my eyesight because of some medicine they're going to put me on. So she became a student of the food, and she literally, her weight dropped down about 15, 20 pounds, and her health turned around to the point she still has autoimmune issue. She has to deal with it, but she manages it through food, and she hasn't had to take any medicine. And this is the thing about when you have an autoimmune issue, if it's catching on, I mean, if you catch it at the beginning, if you let it go, another autoimmune issue will pair up with it. And then another one will pair up. That's when it gets really hard and complicated. She has been able to keep that at bay from happening. And she's pretty healthy. Stress can cause it to trigger stuff for her, but the food, clean food, and it's helped me. We look at pictures from both of us 5 years ago, and we're like, how do we get there? And that's kind of what you're experiencing right now. Sounds
Mhm.
so the
Yeah.
food is everything. And there's a simple solution. Everybody wants to sell the big picture, right? Go buy this, go buy that. The simple solution is our grocery cart looks so different. And the only thing that changed, was if you were to look at where we shop in the grocery store, we shop around the aisles, meaning the
That's what I've
produce,
heard. Yeah.
because everything inside the aisle, some of that stuff you need for seasonings and spices, all that stuff, everything in the middle of the aisle is highly processed. Everything on the outside of the aisles are your farm goods and your seafood and your meats and everything else, all the natural products in their natural state. So that has transformed everything for us. So to start that process, how do you begin?
So I think it starts with me taking ownership of the actual grocery ordering process.
Okay,
It's
good.
something that I've been very hands off with, but I think it's something that I need to take that personal ownership of and say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it for me. I'm going to do it for us. And stop looking so much for the convenience factor
Yeah.
in what we order. And like you say, looking more at what's natural, what's unprocessed, what is something that maybe we have to put a little bit of more effort into, but is ultimately going to be a better product for us to put into our bodies.
Okay. Now I'm going to put a timeline to two pieces because you've identified two areas. The first is the food. When do you want to start? And do you want to set? Let's look at the start date first. When do you want to start?
I'd like to get started by this next grocery order.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that would be a week from now. Let's just call it a week from
Yeah.
now. Okay. 1 week away. Okay. So basically now.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it. I love it. And then, okay, I'm gonna come back to this. What about the working out, gym, walking? By the way, is amazing, and I always dismiss walking. Walking is incredible. I'm 59, and it has become an addiction for me now. What do you see because you have to have the strength too. It's the food and it's the movement. And if you don't move, and how old are you? Do you mind me asking?
I am 36.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you got a long runway. Trust me when I say this. At 59, if you don't move, you're in trouble. But the habits you create today set the stage, they make that transition so much better. And if you can create those habits and stick to them, you're in a beautiful spot right now. And the fact that you're recognizing this, because so many people won't even recognize this till their 40s or their early 50s. That's when it starts really becoming top of mind for folks. So that's awesome that you're doing this. What exercises or what can you envision yourself doing to get back in shape? What draws you in?
So I am big on the walking. I actually do a lot of walking during the day for my job, which is really fantastic.
Good.
But I need to make sure that is carried through into the early mornings and the evening times, places where I have control over that time. And then to keep it up through the weekends, that it's not just something that happens Monday through Friday. But then I have found that I need to get back into, I like doing a lot of the body weight strength training.
That's
So
good.
just working different forms of push-ups and sit-ups and that sort of thing, because I need to make sure that I avoid the back problems that my dad has experienced in his lifetime from he grew up, he was in construction forever himself. And while he was actively in the trades, he was a pretty muscular guy. But as he got older, that started to wane. And then he started to experience all these issues with his back, knees, things like that, that his doctors were telling him, well, it's because your strength has diminished. Your body's not physically supporting itself as
Mhm.
well as it used to. And so before I end up with those problems, I need to make sure that I'm focusing in on those muscle groups that can actually help support the body.
Man, those three things will transform your body. You'll be shocked where you are. The commitment for you needs to be from here to at the let's say what's a realistic timeline for you? Then I'll kind of chime in there because I watched this happen, transform literally in real time with my little group over the past however many months. I'll tell you what that is in a second. But I want to hear your timeline.
So I'm looking to start increasing the physical movement, the walking probably primarily within the next month.
Okay.
It's going to get hot out there in the Fresno area. So I got to start working out what the schedule for that is. When can I fit that movement time in? Because I can't do it in the middle of the day when it's 110,
No, no,
115
you don't want to
outside.
pass out.
But then working out, what does the rest of that picture look like? What does the strength training and that sort of thing look like? Take some time to kind of plan out what the routine is and when can I fit these things in and make sure that they're prioritized. I'm willing to give myself a little bit more time, maybe within the next 2 months to actually
Okay.
have the actual workout plan in effect and in motion.
So that's what people miss when they think they got to go get healthy. They think they got to do everything one time. You're staging this. The food you can start doing right away, and you're already walking, but now you can have more of a strategy to the walking, so it's intentional. And then you're going to enter another phase in about 2 months from now, the strength training. And that strength training is important. People think they got to be in the gym every day. 30 minutes of strength training or 45, especially at your age, build muscle. And it's good to have that muscle because when you get to my age, you start losing it. So to have it to lose is a good thing. If you don't have it, you lose it. That's what causes problems. It literally does. So you're in a terrific spot. Do you have an idea of what measurement do you want to use for the outcome? And we could look at a window of time. How far down the road do you want to look toward the end of the year or fall?
Yeah. So I know that my overall goal is I need to lose about 80 pounds.
Okay,
And so
yeah.
that target is probably more like a year and a half out
Okay.
to kind of safely lose that kind of weight.
Yes.
But by the end of the year, if I was 40% of the way, 30% of the way there, like by the end of the year, if I could have lost 25 pounds,
Okay.
I think that we would be in tracking appropriately.
That is 100% doable. I watched a guy in my group is along those lines, and since the fall to now. And in fact, he's lost over 40 pounds. And he wasn't doing anything crazy. He was just doing the mechanics of what we just described. And that's the healthy way to do it because it's just a steady drum beat and it works. You just have to do it. So that's exciting for you, man. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on the board. You're starting now. I'll break it out, the different areas, but I'm going to put that on the board. It's a close the deal board and that will be public. And we'll circle back to you at the end. And you want to say this by the end of the year, by December?
Yeah.
Okay. December 29th. All right. Then whatever, December 31st, I guess it is. We'll have that and we'll lock that in. And then the other part with your wife is critical. And that could start as simple as something as a date night, right? Once a month or once a week or whatever, start somewhere.
Yeah. And I think that's honestly what the two of us have talked about doing is like just trying to make sure that we're prioritizing that time together. And it'll be, I think we've talked about twice a month doing a date night
Awesome.
and calling that our starting point.
My wife and I are going on a date night. We were going to do it this weekend, but we're like, no, why are we going to pay twice the hotel fee to go to the coast, down the Gulf Coast? We'll go next weekend, but it's not so crowded. So, well, Kris, I want to thank you for being on the show. This is great. I'm encouraged for you. You've put it out there. A lot of people aren't willing to put it out there, but this will transform every aspect of your life. And folks, if you're listening to this, I hope Kris is inspiring you. I hope you follow his path. You can check out more and see the board where we're posting these commitments. Just go to closethedeal.com. You'll find it there. If you want to if you want to come on the show and make your commitment, I welcome you to. Just go check out closethedeal.com. You'll find a place to fill out that information. And Kris, you're inspiring other people to close the deal for themselves. This is a commitment to you, and congratulations, sir.
Thank you. This has been enlightening.
Good. I'm telling you what, I'm having so much fun doing this conversation. I love the business piece, but this is the part where we start transforming lives, and I really appreciate you being part of that.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been great.